Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by James Marsden, the Emmy-nominated star of the series Paradise, which is just, I'm obsessed with the show. I cannot wait to see how it wraps up, James. I guess I just wanted to start there. Like when I know Dan, I think, approached you about the show after an Emmys, right? After like an Emmys party. And so I guess like how much did you know about the twists and all these different things when you signed on to do this, I guess?
First of all, I need you to go on a little longer about how obsessed you are with the show.
I love it so much.
Oh,
You can do
it's,
that.
yeah, it's very, very nice of you to say. I love that everyone's enjoying it as much as they are. Yeah, Dan approached me at the Emmys last year. I was there for jury duty, and he said, "Hey, I know I'm not supposed to do this at these events. We're not supposed to talk business, but I have you right now, and I'm going to make a fool of myself, and I'm going to send you this script, and there's a role in it that I basically had you in mind when I was writing this." And it's the president of the United States. And I was like, what kind of bullshit are you writing that you see me as the president of the United States? And he's, I mean, this is just my thoughts. I didn't actually say these things, but he said, but you're perfect for it because it's not, anyway, he just said, I'm going to send you the script. You don't have to read it tonight. Read it in your time and let me know what you think. I'd love to have you as a part of this. It's with Sterling. And I knew Dan, of course, from This Is Us. And just one of the great writers in town, and you want to find some time in your career if you're lucky enough to work with him. You know he's always going to do something really depthful and rich character development. So I read it and I thought, wow, this is a really fun way to play the president, but also tremendously sad as well. So to be able to, I don't know, to play the president and whatever you think that means or looks like, and then sort of erase that and you come in with a character like Cal, who is the president of the United States, and he does not want to be. He was shoehorned into the position by his father, his overbearing father. He wanted to be a school teacher, but he ends up being, when it all comes down to it, pretty good at the job. If a bit of a broken individual who carries a lot of regret, sadness, and is desperate for connection. Anyway, so I was like, I'm on board. Sterling's on board. Julianne, who I work with on Ally McBeal. It was a love fest and an opportunity to have a very unconventional portrayal of a president.
Well, that was one of the things I love about the show because we live obviously now, and not to make this political, we live in a gerontocracy, right? Like everyone is so old, all our political leaders are so old, so we've never had the opportunity to even have a Gen X president, which I was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Like even like we think of like Obama and Clinton are young presidents, but they're actually not. Obviously, they're older than you, and they were older in the office. I guess like I don't know. I found that like your approach to that aspect of the character, and obviously that's so much in the writing. But I guess how did you think about that? Like without really a lot of a blueprint for that in our lifetimes, basically, right? I mean, I guess like,
Right.
I just think that's like really fascinating.
No, you're right, and I grappled with this idea quite a lot before we ever started rolling cameras. It was, are people going to buy me as this role? It was, I never want to be a part of something that I'm going to have to really, really work to try to convince people to get on board. And we all have this idea in our heads of what the president should look like, feel like, be like. And I know I had that sort of image in my mind of what that should be. And I was, when I think of the president, I don't think of myself. And I don't think of a guy like Cal who's walking around like Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski, you know, with a cocktail and a cigarette and a robe as being your typical president. But I also feel like that's the thing that excited me most about this role was it's not, a lot of people like to describe the show as a political thriller, and I guess that there's a certain amount of that is true. But I actually look at this show as the politics or the political landscape is the backdrop of the show, but it's really an exploration of the human experience, and you get to see sort of almost voyeuristically into these people's lives, and you see more about who Cal is as a human being, as a father, as a friend, as what's he like when the cameras aren't rolling on him and he's not sitting behind the desk, and what are his dragons that he grapples with and regrets that he carries, and so to me it was it was less about feeling presidential and more about highlighting or illuminating the fact that these people who take this position as the president are human beings. And by nature, we are fallible, and that by nature, we do mess up. And I think that there's not as much room for that as there should be for that position. I think when you admit your flaws and you admit that your mistakes in life, it humanizes you, and therefore makes you more relatable to the masses of the people that you're leading. So I don't know. I get a lot of people saying like I want you as the president. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't have to know every in and out of foreign policy and the political science of it all. He's an English lit major, but he's a good human being. And I'd rather have somebody that's at his core will sacrifice any of, I mean, this is debatable because he doesn't really sacrifice his well-being. He does end up in the bunker with his family. But when it comes down to it, he considers himself a decent human being who will try to do the right thing. He even says those words in the first episode. And I do think he makes right by that.
So I mean, I want to talk a little about like next week. We're recording this week. Is next week is the penultimate episode, and the day and every we get to see a lot happen. I think this is like truly one of my. I watched it right before we started chatting. I think you're so great in it, and it's such a great episode. And I guess I want you mentioned that like in how he does the right thing there. And I think all the work you've done throughout the season leading up to like him in the Oval, like giving that speech to like say what's really happening. I like loved watching that. And I think your performance is so great. And like you're saying, you really buy that because of all the work you've done throughout the season to make him feel like he's a good dude just trying to make the best of this impossible situation. I guess like how did you like going into that scene? And you have multiple scenes like that in this penultimate episode. It's so good. I like how did you like going into that? And making that feel like the other thing is obviously you're all of you guys in the show is great actors, so like it's great acting, but like to make that feel so legitimate, I don't know, like how did you kind of approach that to make it feel so honest in this heightened, absolutely crazy situation? You still make
Yeah.
you really find the honesty in it. I just found that really great. So I guess how do you do that basically?
Well, I can't even begin speaking to your question without saying the main I mean it was in the writing. It was on the page. It was so much of the work was done for me already that I was invested in this character. And as the scripts kept coming to me and his journey continued to unfold, um, it was just it was an easy connection to make with this character because you see yourself as this person. If I, my, I never went to acting school. I never did like, full on proper or whatever you do. I was always just curious about the human experience, and I was curious about humanity and about what it means to be human and what I don't know. So I when I read a script or I watch a movie, I imagine myself as that character. And in that scene specifically, I was doing just that. If that were me, what would I want to say and what would I want to do? Now the dialogue's already written for
Right.
me. So much there already, so beautifully written. And it just gave me like that was the real star of the show of the episode. And so hats off to Dan and the writers for all of that. And so I can't take credit for a lot of that. I'm really just the sort of messenger for the audience to make it believable. And it helps when you have scenes like that that resonate with you on a really visceral and a level that you really do feel it. I mean, it's so nice of you to say this, like some of the nicest work I've done. I mean, that's the greatest compliment anybody can ever pay you. And I feel like when those moments happen, it's because you are connecting with the material in a way that you're never having to fake it. And I never had to fake it on this show. I saw myself as James in that position and like, how would you be feeling in this moment? And the balls and the backbone and the courage that it takes for this man to go, no, I'm going to stand for something now. It's why I liked the idea of doing this show and playing this character. It was like you so easily could have been a puppet throughout the whole show. And in that moment, He against all odds, even putting himself in extreme danger, is going to try to do the right thing, and he give the American public what they need to know. And even then, like you said, it's an imperfect situation. It's still messy. It's
Right.
still complicated. He's still fucking up. He's still getting in the helicopter and going to the bunker while everybody stays behind to die.
It's crazy. And then you also have the
Yeah.
great scene when you get to the tarmac with Sterling, who is amazing on the show as well. I love that scene too, because like obviously like Cal, I think Cal thinks of Xavier as his friend, right? Like, but also is the president. And I think the way you play that scene is so great because it is like two friends arguing, and then I think you have a line. You're like, easy. He says something. You're like, easy. The way you say it, it's just is like, I'm actually still the president. Like, it's just such a great that scene. I also think is fantastic, and
Yeah,
like the writing is great, and the way you guys play it
yeah,
is so entertaining.
yeah, no, yeah, I think he says careful.
Careful. That's it. There
Yeah,
you go.
careful. Yeah, I mean, and and he's not trying to just exercise his power there. He's
No.
doing it in a way of like, he sees the person who is the most rigidly, um, Xavier, the character of Xavier, is just so by the book, so his dedication to his job and his moral code for all of that. And I the whole season I'm trying to get him to like loosen up and like have some fun. And the moment I see him start to get emotional and really come after me and really his laws of cause and effect have been turned upside down. He's lost his wife. He might lose his children. He needs to be with his family, his kids that just lost their mother. I have to be in that moment the one that pulls his focus to remind him that it's less about being the president and I have power over you and more about if you want to survive this, you have to listen to me right.
Interesting. Okay. I
You
like
want your
this.
children to not be traumatized by this forever and to have some sort of semblance of normality or normalcy, sorry, normality. Then you got to listen to me right now. You know what the right thing to do is. But again, such a powerful scene. When I read it the first time, I was like, when are we shooting this? I cannot wait because Sterling is like, you know what he's going to do. And the greatest luxury ever as an actor is to feel like you're a part of something that you don't have to muscle your way through.
Hmm.
The worst feeling is like, I don't buy this dialogue. I don't buy the scene. And that stuff in that episode was rich.
Do you
Really.
do you have like, I mean obviously like in the first episode we see Cal is dead, right? So like you're dead in the show, like, and then we see all these flashbacks. But does knowing where the character ends in like how do you does that it can't inform what you're going to be doing as the performance, but how do you kind of like knowing his fate, I guess, kind of how do you like block that out, I guess, while you're acting in like in the moment?
Well, right. Yeah. Well, part of it is you do calibrate as you go along, right?
Okay.
I didn't have all full 8 episodes when I started shooting. I had a general idea of what was, Dan filled me in on the big points of his, of Cal's story arc, but I didn't know what specifically it looked like on the page. So there were constant conversations and questions as we went along, where you're getting new information, you're reading new scenes, you're reading new scripts, and it starts to yes, you have the idea and you know where it's going, but you don't know literally what you're saying or what you're doing. So you are kind of recalibrating as you go along. And I didn't know so many things until we were a good halfway through the season. Um, and there were questions of like, is Cal martyring himself with this? Is this something? Does he know it's his death is right around the corner? And with Dan, there's great latitude in for interpretation and for my portrayal of this role, and he hires people that he trusts and but also gets what's on the page. And so, yeah, it was a great experience. But yes, you are kind of, having been told in flashback, I obviously know my fate. But that doesn't mean that everything's all worked out
Right.
along the way.
Right.
So yeah.
I have time for a couple more. I just want to ask you. I know you mentioned at the top like you were an Emmy nominee for Jury Duty, and this is when this came about. This is, I guess, I've looked at your IMDb. This is your first big role since Jury Duty where you played yourself. And I guess like as an actor, I know you're playing a variation on yourself, but did you learn anything about after playing yourself? change what you think about acting as other people, I guess.
Yeah, I don't I wonder. Not really. The only thing that jury duty did for me, well, it did a lot for me. It was a huge surprise and success, and then it was a real fun way for me to take a big swing on something that allowed me to send up Hollywood celebrity and entitlement and all of those things, and to play myself, a version of myself. I don't know what it says about me that I actually have a good time making fun of myself. I
It means
enjoy.
I think it means you're well adjusted, I would say.
Oh, it means that I don't take myself too
Yes.
seriously. I take the work seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously.
Yes.
And I think maybe there's an element of that in Cal where there's a sort of self-deprecating
Hmm.
nature to him, and he doesn't want to take everything too seriously. But for my approach to acting, I know I think I'm very good at compartmentalizing. It's one job is one thing, and then switch. It was so much fun to do to jury duty, and it was such a unique, different experience that I've never really done before. But it was also very nice to go back into scripted with
Sure.
that. And I always try to find ways of taking something that's you have the blueprint, you have the scenes, you have the dialogue, and then finding ways to kind of stray from the path, come back to it, or insert your own whatever it is into that role. And it excited me to play the role of Cal because there was so much of him to me.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe that's something that I pulled from, doing jury
Interesting.
duty. Like, okay, well, people kind of like this side of you.
Do you have, I guess, last thing then? Obviously, I've not seen the finale, and we've seen up to the penultimate episode, at least I have, but and I know Cal is not alive in the show, but if there is a season two, which I really hope there are you already like asking, can we do more flashbacks? Like, how are you gonna like, how do you want to get back into
It's
this?
funny you say that because I did this show with Liz Feldman, Dead to Me, and um, I was supposed to come on for one season, and I had such fun with the role and with Liz's writing and with Christina and Linda, and that I thought, well, shit, I that was a fun party. How I wish I could come back and do this again. And Liz says, "Would you like to? We can make you a twin." So and she worked it out, and it all worked. But I would love to come back for another a season of this show. I don't know how, in what capacity, and what that would look like. I guess more flashbacks, but it's just rare that you're a part of something that feels really special, and a role that um, you go to sleep at night coming up with ideas, and you wake up in the morning with new ideas. Like it really does. It was an inspiring thing to be a part of, an inspiring role to play. And you want every job to feel that way because you just feel like it's this sort of limitless well of inspiration that you can keep pulling from. So yeah, I don't know what that would look like, but
Cal twin. That's what it sounds like to
Al
me.
Twin, yeah, yeah, yeah.
James Marsden,
Make it
thank you
work.
for doing this. Paradise is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.